Hello, beautiful, wealthy women. So I have a very, very important interview today. It is a subject matter that sometimes we all like to avoid. However, it is one of those very, very, very important topics that need to be accepted and planned for properly so you can get it out of your way, get it out of your head, and just know that you have checked all of your boxes and everything is good. So I won't even reveal what I'm talking about. I'm going to hand it over right now to the woman of the hour. She is truly amazing and she has such a beautiful, soft approach in the way she has created this business to help women and others to kind of get their ducks in a row. So without further ado, Joe, take it away. Tell us
Thank
all about
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for including me, inviting me to this conversation. My name is Joe Welch, and I'm known as the beneficiary's best friend. I know I'm just like you, right? I'm so busy. I'm overwhelmed. We're wealthy women, so that means that we're in some stage of creating our business, whether it's starting, idea, creation, pulling in coaches, or even you might be already at the point where you're making a lot of money. And we're trying to stretch the dollar. We're trying to make the minutes that we have in the day stretch even further. And here's the big question. So when you're listening to this, I need you to put in the chat, do you have your will? Yes or no? I know it's such a hard thing. I know that for some people, maybe you even had a heart palpitation or like, oh my gosh, I've been working on that. Or my partner, or my spouse, my family member has been saying, let's get this going. Or maybe it's you who's driving this conversation at home, right? Right? You have little kids or even grown kids. You have pets. You have all these things in your life that are so amazing and they're part of your success. But the reality is that we don't want to talk about our wills, right? It's almost like it's a dirty word in some ways. And I get it. And I want to just start out by saying that coming up with this business, which by the way, I'm the will fairy. I
I
know.
love
I,
this.
I I do too. And the will fairy, because we know that things around the will, around death, and many of you have probably been in the position where we've had loss and it's been handled well, it's been handled poorly. Maybe you're just a bystander. There's so many feelings, there's a lot of grief involved. And when we think of all these aspects, as well as what's portrayed on movies, right, and books, that a will is for somebody who is Batman, fundamentally, right? You need to be Batman or somebody who's going to go to a big office somewhere with this all dark wood and there's some guy behind a desk. I am with you. I get it. So the reason I came up with a will fairy is that I wanted to shift that because the reality is that we need to talk about it. And at its core, it's just about creating a plan. So I've spoken to thousands of people. I love people. So it's likely it's in the thousands for years about all the different things around being an entrepreneur, small business. I'm also Latina. I'm a woman. There's so many things that we're always pushing that boulder uphill. And what I realize is that very often we say similar things. It's too expensive, which totally I get. I have no idea how to get started, right? So as we know in business world, a confused mind does nothing, right? We know
Mhm.
that. But also I think, and this is what I have found, is that we're not looking at our value. If I were to ask you how much you're worth per hour, per minute, very often what we find is that people push that away, especially in that wealthy woman. We have to get to that wealthy woman mindset where we say, my time is valuable and therefore I'm going to outsource. I'm going to this, I'm going to that. And it's again, Sisyphus pushing that boulder uphill because we have to get there to then start to understand our value. And so that's where I come from. I come from value centered, heart centered. My mission as the Will Fairy and all of my businesses under Ask Joe are about legacy, inclusion, and engagement. And the reason these are so critical to me, just to give you a little background about me, so right, is that as a first generation Latina, I speak three languages. I'm a certified sign language interpreter as well. So English, Spanish, and sign language are my languages. I work in communities and am part of communities and have friends in places where we tend to be marginalized, where we tend to not always get the full slice of the cake, so to speak, or that information comes in these different ways that are prevented in multiple ways. And with that, it means that we need to start to change how we approach some of these very basic elements of our life, of our business. I mean, a will is such a key element in everything that we do. Now, I will say for two disclaimers. One, I am not the will attorney, I'm the will fairy.
Very.
And secondly, that the will is not a one size fits all, fixes everything. You have a will and that's everything. It's case by case. And so what I do in talking to everybody and trying to find out how to create something for busy entrepreneurs, for people who have children and pets and all the different responsibilities, is I am your accountability partner. Again, in this construct, in our world of business, that is so known. We know what an accountability partner is, but who's your accountability partner for the will and for those different items? So what I did in my business is I created a couple different programs. In fact, when you sign up with me, I just little plug, joewelch.com is going to get you access to everything that I'm doing. I have multiple offerings, right? So you can come and just spend 30 minutes with me and we just talk about big picture will. I have programs that bring people from week to week to make sure that they're on track to get the will done. We can do one-on-one. So there's so many different ways because how we show up for this, it may vary based on your situation. And I also want to identify those of us who might be in my generation. I'm a Gen Xer, right? So I'm 53. I have no trouble saying that out loud. Be proud. As I saw somebody saying level 53 instead of age, you go, I'm at level 53,
Oh, I love
which I like,
that.
right? It's just a
And
different
let's
frame.
keep up leveling, right?
Right? You want to up
Yeah, all
level.
the way.
Exactly. And so
There
when
you
we're
go.
looking at up leveling, where I'm a sandwich generation as well. So I have my parents who are still alive and they have to work out their legacy and how that's going to in fact impact me and my sibling. And then I also have an adult child in college. And what is, so there's a lot of legacy going on. And then as I talk about, not only in chapters that I write, but also as often as I can, as a first generation American, my parents came from Colombia, and what I call they took one branch off of their family tree and they planted it here and started it. And I'm one of the first branches. And so for me, that idea of legacy is starting new. And so that might be happening to a lot of people in so many different ways. And very often we tie legacy with wealth, but wealth is built. It's not only inherited. So you might be like me, the first generation of wealth builders in your life. And how do we start to think about that responsibly? Right? So we've talked about the why. Why do we need a will? Well, at its core, it empowers the people that are in your life to
Yeah.
know what to do. After talking to so many people, I grew up, again, I didn't have millions of dollars. I didn't have fancy cars growing up. So I thought that wills and legacy and lawyers were for somebody else, not me. And I realized that all it is a blueprint. So that blueprint is my mission. My mission is to get that blueprint in everybody's hands to help them. It's personal because it's not about one size fits all, but at its core is getting those basic documents in place as soon as possible and then connecting you to other experts who can help plan. Now, mind you, for me, there's legacy. We talked about that, inclusion. And so the inclusion is I really want to reach people of all generations, different languages, different cultures, because not every culture comes with the same ideas of what legacy is. So we talk about it in terms of stories as well as wealth, the idea of what is important to you in your family. But also, inclusion for me includes people who are not in the standard deviation of normal, right? So it's things in my world, everybody is amazing and wonderful, but maybe we don't think about it in those ways. We also impacts our client base. Who are we serving? For me, I always want to make sure that everything is accessible so everybody can show up at the table, that we're able to speak to other people's needs and wants, whether it's neurodivergence or identity or race or whatever that is. We want to make sure physical ability, being able to hear, all of those things are so critical, not only in our own wealth development, but also in our client base and how we show up. So that's such a key. Everything is built around that. And then last is engagement. So I like to have fun. And the way, and you might be thinking, how do you have fun talking about a will? Like, what are you talking about, Joe? Right? Where are you coming from? Are you not taking this seriously? And I'm taking it very seriously, but I love to bring fun and joy into everything so that we can get past some of the hurdles, so that the real hard stuff is addressed with experts. And what I do is I just get us there. I'm in the midst of one of my 6-week programs called One Will Away. And in that, we just had a Jeopardy game. And tonight we're going to be having a scavenger hunt, if you
I
can
love
believe it.
it.
They don't, I know that this is pre-recorded, so I know you're not going to tell them, but we're going to be doing it. We do it in lots of different ways so that we can get the work done. We partner with experts, and with that, we get the will. And then whatever it is that your family needs, we find the people who are going to make sure that that happens. And you do it in a relaxed way. You do it with guidance, because you always have your will fairy on your side. So with that, my goal is to get a blueprint in everybody's hands. The way I do it is with fun and inclusion, and making sure that everybody's able to not only have a seat at the table, but cook a meal if they want and bring to the table, throw down a chess game or a parcheesi, or we're all there and we're all using the tools that are available, and we do it together. So a lot of my programs are in group, but they're also one-on-one if that's what your family needs. And we just make sure that this next generation is making sure that they have those underpinnings set, ready to go, and done in a way that it's not looked at as a end of life document, but instead as a success inventory, because that a will is a living document. It's about where you are at any time in your life, and taking note of those successes, and making sure that each of those successes, your business, your family, your children, your properties, anything you have, whether it's wealth, tangible, or even spiritual, legacy in terms of photos, you know, things that are happening, that maybe jewelry or even just memories are being able to be moved on from one generation to the next. And then just to kind of wrap it up, I do have a wonderful summit that's coming up in November. And so by joining me here at joewelch.com, it's going to lead you. You're going to get all the access. We have free tickets for that summit. It's based on a book that I'm writing right now called Who Gets Your Cheese. The title is still in the works, so it's right now temporarily the Who Gets Your Cheese Summit. And again, it's just bringing us all through the generations and through different aspects of that kind of planning. And I'm looking for speakers still, and I'm looking for folks who bring engagement and a different point of view into our lives, so that it's not the same old, you're in a room reading a will. Maybe you're having a celebration of life. Maybe you're choosing different things that are more your personality, that have a little more spark, and that we are just redefining how we think of our lives all the way to the end and beyond.
Well, like I said, wealthy women, this is a hot, tough subject, but so well done by Mrs. Welch. Joe Welch, I'm sorry. She is just amazing with the way that she's making this so comfortable, so relaxed. And you have to think about it this way. We're all on this journey to being a wealthy woman. And I believe that means everything from money to how you take good care of yourself, to your family, the way you eat and take care of your body. We have to pay our taxes. We need our insurances. We need our business automations. We put everything in place and foundational pieces together. And we run away from this very important topic, many of us. And I just want you to now understand it's just one more part of the piece of the puzzle of you organizing your life and getting it all in check. You don't have to put all the big emotions into it. Just look at it like, okay, it's like a yearly checkup, but this time you just have to, do it once, get it done. You are taking care of your family too. This is a big deal because I feel that many family members, they're very there's an underlying stress when they don't know what that person wants, and they love this person, they want to do right by this person, and let us all live till well over 100, but even at some point it's going to happen, and there's a lot of stress when someone doesn't know what to do. And so one of the best gifts that you can give to your family is to let them know these things, because they may not talk to you about the stress they feel worrying if they're confused as to what you want. They really, it's a tough subject, but subconsciously or even to themselves quite a lot, they're feeling that stress and they don't want to bring it up. But you are going to be able to give them such a gift by releasing that stress that they probably are feeling. So I highly recommend that you definitely reach out, because this is a this is just about the most endearing, fun way to experience this. And you'll have a friend. Joe's a friend. She's going to help you. And, it's going to be a lot easier than you think. And she's going to make it beautiful, customized experience for you. So please reach out to her. So thank you, Joe, because this really, and I love everything else that you had to say about all the other things with the inclusion and engagement and all of the things, because it all matters. And you really brought me a tear in my eye when you said about your family and the branch, and you planted the branch as the first generation. I mean, that is a beautiful way to look at it. I mean, that is just beautiful. And the vision on that, the story behind that, it's just very moving. So I love everything about what you're doing. It
Thank you.
really is just such important work, and how you can help so many people. So,
Yeah.
okay, so now let's move into the success questions, because this is such a cool business that you created, and I know you do a lot of other things as well. And so I want to kind of ask you some. Yeah. Oh, look at there you go. I know. Look at us. We're both branding ourselves today. The Will Fair. I just this is my first time on video wearing my new Wealthy Woman Everyday shirts. So I'm like, yay, let's go
Ooh,
for it. So
amen.
get in the
Swag.
mindset, own the business, right? And all the things. So okay, so as you know, we're going to do some success questions so you can feel inspired by how Joe will share her journey and the things that she's learned along the way to her success, and how she goes forward in her life. So let's get this started. Okay, let's see. I always like to ask this question because there's a lot of women out there that are just starting their businesses, or, considering it, or, you know, I would like to know why you started your business. How did it empower you? And why would you encourage other women to just go for their business dreams as a form of empowerment and self love and
Oh,
self
that
discovery?
that is such a great question. And I know I'm speaking to a lot of people out there who feel that perhaps they see the world in a different way. Like, are you out there and you're like, I don't know, I feel like I could come up with a better solution. So there's that, right? There's one of those drives. The other is there's something about the 9 to 5 job and working for someone else that just feels very disempowering. And we have to remember, and I think this is sometimes we forget this, that when we are working for a job, a job 9 to 5, we are working for another person's vision. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just that when we're thinking about it in terms of what makes us happy and where our joy is and where our frustrations are, I think that the assumption that a job is going to answer a lot of those questions, no one's talking about what the other choices are. And I will say that entrepreneurship is risk. That's the fundamental meaning, right? The definition is that we are taking a different risk. But we need to normalize that, because we've seen in the pandemic that more people, when the whole world was put on pause, were willing to start to venture out on some of those risks. So for me, my I've always been a bartender. I'm a hustler, right? I've been a bartender. I worked at Burger King. So I want to shout out to any of my, like that's one of those early questions, which was it Burger King or McDonald's? I know that there's some others there, but like I was a Burger King kid. I started in those ways and I had a lot of fun. I became a bartender. That's a lot of where I got a lot of my agency as well. I was a late bloomer trying to figure out my world, but I had a hard time understanding money and I had a hard time having a good positive money mindset. Like I said, I'm 53. It's only in the pandemic in 50, when I turned 50, that I started to really embrace what money means and what it doesn't mean. And that's a
Mm,
long life to live,
yeah.
feeling broke, feeling poor, feeling like I don't deserve wealth. And so as I was navigating all of that, I've been this year I celebrate 30 years as a sign language interpreter. I'm a certified sign language interpreter. I love what I do. I work in the deaf blind, hard of hearing communities. I been involved with disability services. So that's been my career for my whole life, which I love. But I have had multiple jobs and I also run a freelance agency, but I never thought of it as a real business because it's all in service. It's all, so it just kind of, you start down that path and then you wake up one morning and that you're just working all the time and you're doing it. And I have learned, it's immeasurable. I can't even put a number or how much I've learned because of my friends and my colleagues, the people who mentored me. Like it's just been such a robust life. But the oversight was really not digging into what a business was and the fact that I was running my own business and I was my own boss. Like I just didn't have that mentality and it started to bubble up for me. So those early days, maybe that's happening to you, is like I started bubbling up wanting to do some other things and I didn't know how to get there. And so again, the journey for me really starts at 50 where I made some decisions. I was, my family we had gone through some loss and some health issues. We were in the middle of now this pandemic and I really leaned into it. And that's where the Will Fairy became the Will Fairy. Like this is the business that I want to move forward. And I started putting my heart, my head, my time behind it. And I'll tell you, it's been a journey. It's been the empowerment piece vacillates because you're unless you have wealth already established, we're doing it on, like I said, stretching that dollar. So, I'm doing everything myself. I do much more. I do so much more that will, let's have an appointment. You can learn more about all the other ways that I show up in the world. But like I'm doing my own recording, my own contacts. I'm trying to reach out to people. I'm lead magnet and manager, and I'm trying to do the follow up. And it's overwhelming at first, but the empowerment comes when you start to find the right people to walk you through that journey, finding a good coach, the right coach. Now, I had to make some money decisions in this early stage where I was like, I'm going to invest in this accelerator. And it was terrifying because I've never spent $1,000 on myself, let alone to go into a training that wasn't going to provide me like immediate results. It was hard. And that shift for me was where the empowerment came, is to be in rooms with other people just like me, to learn from people like you who have so much experience to share. And now here I am 3 years later, I'm a very different entrepreneur. It's amazing.
I love everything that you said because it is pretty much the typical journey of most women. And we have to give ourselves a little bit of patience because this conversation around money and women's empowerment is fairly new, and it's only now becoming really robust where we look at other women as collaborators rather than competitors. So the whole field has changed to become very inclusive, where we're helping each other instead. We have had to unlearn so many different money blocks that we're still learning. And I love what you also said, because when you're starting to build your business outside of if you come from money and had some funding, we typically do this the same way. We finally decide to stop making it a hobby and take it really seriously, which means we have to take ourselves seriously, which is shocking because all of a sudden that means we must value ourselves and up level our thinking. And this starts the whole chain reaction. And then we do, and we learn and we grow and we feel overwhelmed. I can tell you this is one of the main things that will happen. And then, like you said, you start to focus on what you do really well, and then you try and delegate or outsource what you can do and you might not be
And
able to
that
do that for
and
a
that
while.
costs money.
Right, exactly. You might not be able to do it for a while, but that's okay. So you do the best that you can with what you have until you can do better. And then along the way you start, and it is really one of the best educations in the world is starting your own business, because you will realize, and there's so many different things you don't know about that then you figure it out, and then you have to, tinker with until you finally arrive, and it just kind of never ends. You always think you're
It
going to arrive, but honestly, you're just going to get better and better.
Exactly. And I can't express, I've always had mentorship in my life. So as a sign language interpreter, as a woman of color, I've been my world existed in being a Latina in the sign language interpreter world, which meant a lot of DEI, a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion, and thinking about how to bring representation forward. So the blessings with that is also that a lot of people of color are also community based, very collectivist culture.
Yeah.
And so that mentorship comes, you see it more, right? People are guiding us down, but we don't call it necessarily a mentor. It just is someone looking out for you. But to see for me to enter into the business world and to see more of that, um now, and having other labels like accountability partner, I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to have all the different support models. They're not just not one size fits all, but do you have a coach, a cheerleader? Do you have a colleague that's in the same place as you for accountability and like pushing each other forward? So just even looking at that as my business was a big shift for me. It was a big shift. And you know what? It's hard. And here's an even harder piece is that not everybody's ready for your journey. Not
Yeah.
everybody is looking in the same direction you are. I heard this amazing quote. I was watching Oprah interview Michelle Obama, and when I heard this statement about this, I had to sit down. Oprah asks her if everybody in her world made it to the next level when she went to the White House. And the frame was some people just didn't have the oxygen for the climb. And
Mm.
I felt like it wasn't, and this is one of the I have a couple of the projects that I'm working on. One is a New York Times bestseller tracked collaborative book called Fueled by Caffeine and Lipstick. And my chapter is about that, is about, it's not that people are not good or that they're not quality or that your friends are not friends. But when we start on this journey, especially an entrepreneurial journey, some people don't have the oxygen to make the climb, meaning that we have to redefine not only ourselves, but our relationships. And that's not an easy task. It's
No,
really
it's so true.
challenging because we feel like we're letting people down. And you know what I mean? And we feel like when someone doesn't understand us, we don't look at it as, oh, we're having a difference of communication, especially someone who's been in our lives for a long time or who really know a lot of the nooks and crannies. But instead, it feels like we're somehow not being true to ourselves when what we're doing is growing and we start to develop new circles.
And you need to, and this is very important that you bring this up because it happens. In fact, you can almost count on it. If you're just starting your business or just beginning it, you might have noticed you might have one or two friends or family members that are your cheerleaders, but be prepared. The majority will not understand what you're doing. And that's okay. You have to stop making them your audience. And basically, you find an audience that relates. And this is why it's so important to hang out in women business circles, whether they're free or paid, it doesn't matter. And even if you don't have time or you can't do that, go on YouTube and watch some of the entrepreneurs that are already doing some successful things, and just stay in the game, be inspired. You are in your own lane. You're a maverick, you're a rebel, you're all the things. You're special. You're not everybody's cup of tea, and you have to toughen up a little bit and accept that you're not doing anything wrong. You're just doing something different. The same way that they're not doing what you're doing, and you're not judging them for potentially, let's say, having a 9 to 5. You're all for them. That's great for you. Good for you. Glad to hear it. Well, they may not be your cheerleader, but that's okay. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. You have to find your soul's happiness and you have to follow it. because this is your life experience and you owe it to yourself. You have to value yourself enough,
And
and
and I wanted
yeah,
just to add that, like, there's a couple of different statements that are very common in this space. One is you are the average, you're the sum average of the people, the 5 people around you.
yeah,
And
mhm,
so that's one aspect of it, which is that if you are looking to succeed, if you're looking forward, then you need to start to be around people who are ahead of you so that you can continue to see what's ahead. The other side is that very often I think we become adults and we think that that's just kind of where we stay. And so that reminder that we're always growing, you know, it may be that you need to just redefine some of those relationships. Ones that have been around for so long, it doesn't mean you have to rule them out of your life. It just means something's happening. There's a
yeah. I
little
was wondering what is
you
I
must
have
have
no
a
idea.
reaction button on that picks up your hand signal. So for those of you listening, a little thumbs up came up on her.
Thumbs up is better than thumbs down, so that's a good thing. Thank goodness we had the
But
right emoji there.
right? And so that the reminder that
That
it's
was a
it's about
sign
I
from the
know, I was like,
divine.
yeah, very good.
Yeah,
People cheering us on.
yeah. There you
You know,
go.
that the people that we are redefining it, it can be done with grace. It can be done
Yes.
with love. How somebody else reacts may not be that. And, it's hard. I just need to say it out loud that it is hard that there is some loss in it. But the
Yeah.
other side is that if you're finding where you belong and the people around you
Yes.
looking in the same direction, there is a magic there that is
Yes.
is unbelievable.
And
Unbelievable.
it's so true, and you need that. So if you are currently waiting for your family members and friends to be your cheerleading section and they're not, and you're starting to feel the sadness of that loss, you have to be proactive and go find your groups because that's not a nice place to stay. And so value yourself enough and go get people that get you. There's plenty. You will have more than you know what to do with the people. So I
And
wanted to
I
move
just
on
want to
to
say,
go
as the
ahead.
fairy,
Mhm.
come along with me. If you are looking for people, I love networking and I'll help
Yeah,
you. I'll help you along.
absolutely.
You don't need to
So
you don't have to do a will. You can just come. I'll share with
just
you all
hang
my
out,
networking
do
stuff.
karaoke or something, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Joe likes karaoke, so there's a lot of fun going on
Not
there too.
only do I like karaoke, but for the month of October, every Saturday night, I am going to be the KJ for a virtual engaging karaoke night. So
Okay,
again,
so
joewelch.com and I'll
there you
tell you
go.
all about it.
Just hang out with Joe. That you'll
Hang
have
out with
fun
Joe.
no matter what. Okay, a couple more questions before we sign off because we are really putting some juice into. We may not be doing quantity, but we're doing quality here. So let's go with the next one. What practices do you suggest for getting in touch with your soul's purpose if someone is maybe a little confused? They know there's something more for them. What is your process when you just feel a little like you need to know more? How do you go about that?
For me, this speaks to I do a lot of things. And so I'm going to speak to those of you who do so many things. You have a ton of ideas. You're feeling like you don't have direction, but you do, right? In different times, you're directed towards here and towards there. And the thing that I learned in 2020, I became a part of an accelerator with a woman named Denise Solar Cox, who does movie about being Enya, being a first generation Latina. And so my first experience in coaching at this level was a room full of people just like me, which was amazing. And I was able to just hear things in different ways. I felt the camaraderie. But one of the pieces that really stuck was I need to pick one vehicle. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not all the things. I am still all the things, but I chose the Will Fairy to move forward so that I could learn all the steps from beginning to fruition. So here, you guys are part of my journey in this, from not knowing how to describe myself, not knowing how to pitch, not knowing how to define myself and do mission and all that. And the practice I used was to start to look at one thing and
Mhm.
really follow through and start to define it. So I want to bring everything else in. You're even hearing me in this conversation. I'm holding some stuff back because you know what? If you want to get to know me, we're going to put time on the schedule. Let's have that conversation. But the being able to focus everywhere I show up, I'm the Will Fairy. I'm the Will Fairy. I'm the Will Fairy. I'm the beneficiary's best friend. This is my focus. Allowed me in the last 3 years to get to what is it that I'm doing here. do I like this? Is this what I want to do? Every step of the way, my mission, legacy, inclusion, engagement, all serves the Will Fairy. The audience that I'm talking to is women entrepreneurs in general, small businesses, but also marginalized people who feel marginalized in the larger community. I'm speaking to the person who has a lot of ideas. I'm speaking to maybe someone who's trans or who has a different identity or neurodivergent, or I'm speaking to that because that's my passion, my life, the world around me. And I know, I understand and listen in that space. And so starting to look at audience, mission, vision, drive, all of those things through one lens then
Mhm.
can impact the fact that I'm a virtual, certified a certified virtual producer, for example, which is one of my skill sets, but also another task that I do. And now I can talk to vision, mission, audience, right? I know how to apply that instead of doing it in little bits on all the different things. And I never, like, really never getting to a finish line. So the practice was to get on one vehicle.
This is everything what you just
Everything.
spoke about, because I went through this and I have a feeling many of you women go through this because we tend to be multi-passionate, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful, it's amazing. What happens though on the flip side, maybe the negative side of that, is you get so dispersed in all the things that you don't make traction anywhere, and you wind up spinning your wheels because you forgot what you started over here. You have to restart, and then and it goes on. And this is one of the biggest ways you get into overwhelm. And so I was suffering from this big time. And it even goes into shiny object syndrome, where you have to have the thing, the training on this. You need to know that, you need to know that, you need to know that, you need to know it yesterday. And then you get to a point where you start not even liking what you do, and you're going to start to sink a little bit. If you're experiencing this or have experienced it, it's common. And Joe is absolutely spot on. For me, it was a book. I forget it was called. I think it's called The One Focus, and it just slapped me into shape. And it's like, choose one thing. And I am so tempted, like Joe. Oh, but I have this great idea and that
I
great
do
idea, and it
this
would
and
be good. And I am so excited. But no, 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 you can't do that. And I remember, I forget who it was, but they said, don't even think about bringing out another idea until your one idea is basically livable, like you can pay to live. And then when you get to that point, then maybe you can bring something in.
yeah.
And it's not to limit you. It is not, it's to empower you, because you can do all of the things eventually, but not all at once.
Well, and
Not if you want to make traction.
what I'd like to add is we're also talking about what's on the stage. So if you are showing up, and it's just a great reminder, like I show up at networking events. If today I'm the Will Fairy and tomorrow I'm the certified virtual producer, and then the next day I'm a accessibility queen, then you don't know what to do with me. Now, mind you, I will say that I fought tooth and nail because I'm like, people will know all the things. And they're like, but not at the beginning. And that speaks to how we want to present to our audience. You guys are going to get to know me. And if you show up in my space, then you're going to know about all the things I do.
Start
And
with
it's
one thing, right?
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's the one thing. And it doesn't mean you don't do the other things. I still do all the other things. But
exactly.
my public, my persona, the thing that I mean, I don't know if it's a persona because this is me, but the person I bring to the table, the message that I'm sharing, and you guys are hearing it right now. I can still talk about inclusion. I can talk about, I'm still doing all of my tech and things. So I can speak
All
to
of it.
the fact that I'm skilled in producing. We just brought up
Exactly.
karaoke because we have fun. Like, all the things still exist. But when we leave here, I'm Joe Welch. I'm the Will Fairy, and I'm the beneficiary's best friend. And you'll be like, oh, right. I
Start
know
from
who to
there. It's
call.
branding too.
I know
Exactly.
who to call for
Yes,
this thing.
exactly.
I
Okay,
also
I have
wanted,
two.
okay, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going to bring up one more little
Yeah,
quick
go
thing.
ahead. Go ahead.
Education is an addiction. It's a coping
Mm.
mechanism to not getting things done. So my comfort zone is going and learning everything. And so I'm just going to give you a heads up from one education addict to another that at a certain point, you need to go from learning to doing. And so I just needed to put that nugget in
Yes,
there.
no, and I love that you also said that, because I I used to be that way. I still love learning and I still do it. But the thing is so right, because what happens is you feel, I mean, it's very important to learn and you have to learn the things. However, you can be hiding behind that. It's a very easy thing to hide behind, because it seems like you're being productive. You learn something new, you get the endorphin rush, you're proud of yourself, you checked off the box. But at the end of the day, having some new knowledge doesn't pay the rent or the mortgage, right? So at some point, you have to stop making your business a hobby and turn it into a business, the same way that, if you had a job, you had a salary, you have to have a salary for yourself. You have to turn it into a real business and respect it
It's
as such.
hard. It's so hard.
It's hard, but it's also hard to work for another person for the rest of your life and
I
build their dream
completely
and not
agree.
your own. So no matter
A
what, but it
100%.
is important. Own it that it's not going to be like skipping through fields every day. Some days will be like that when you're inspired, and some days will be like, oh God, I have to do this today, but I have to get it done. It is what it is. You get to be your own boss and maybe work in your pajamas. So there's a trade-off to everything. So anyway, I love this. So two more questions. We'll do them a little bit in a speed round, so we can get to the juicy stuff. So I wanted to ask you, I'm all about like wealthy woman every day. So treating yourself, it's about money, sure, but it's also about little things like serving your coffee in your favorite cup, or buying yourself flowers for your desk, or noticing the sunsets or the sunrises, whatever it is. There's wealthy woman activities that we should always be doing every day, because it builds up our muscle to basically be valuing ourselves and be open to receiving more, also in the form of money. So I always like to ask, how do you practice being a wealthy woman every day? Like, what morning routine or habits that are consistently done every single day that you do?
Thank you. One is, and you guys have probably heard a million of these, and you have the journals, and there's all about affirmations and gratitude. And bringing that into my life was a game changer. As a sign language interpreter, so in that career life, language is everything. And we know, and if you don't know, I'm telling you now, language defines things, how we talk to ourselves. So very often we have no trouble telling ourselves what a terrible human we are. We're not worthy, we're not valuable. Look at this thing I did. That comes easily, right? We do it to ourselves all the time. You might be doing it to yourself right now. And I'm going to tell you that you are now my friend, and my friends are not allowed to be talked to that way. And so we need to start to
Love it.
shift, right?
Yes.
You cannot talk to my friend that way. We need to start to shift and say things that, even the fake it till you make it is a little strong,
Yeah.
but the inherent meaning behind that, we are telling ourselves who we're going to be. We're walking the walk. So I'm going to show you something that I have here that is one of mine
I love it. Love
that
it.
I look at every day. I'm a millionaire. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not. Today I'm not, but I am, because I'm on that journey to millionaire. So I am a millionaire. I'm just at the early stages of millionaire.
There you go. Amen. I
and
love
and
it.
and and it's gonna feel wrong, it's gonna feel fake, but we will happily ride on ourselves and talk dirt about our own selves to our in our own minds, and we have no trouble doing that. So I'm going to say, whatever the level of intensity you have about how you're not a good person, you have to start to match about the things that you are. I'm a
Yeah,
good
and it
person, I
becomes
love
familiar
myself.
then. Yes, exactly.
it,
And it should be kind of like uncomfortable or feeling like unusual at first, but it's a habit. And it's the more and more you say it, the more your mind starts to receive it and accept it, until eventually you become it. So I love that. And I also like what you said, you're my friend, don't talk to my friends that way. But I used to do this thing also, like I would tell myself or someone else that was being hard on themselves, if you were your own child, would you talk to your child this way, so
and you
harshly or with
and
such judgment? No,
you
you
bring
wouldn't.
up a great point. We are also dealing with the parts of us that are still children, that was
Yes.
not resolved.
Yeah.
So when we start, that was probably one of the biggest impacts. I've done some breakthroughs. I have another coach, Forbes Riley. I'm a part of a network, Easy Way Network. And there's so many different places where we start to hear all of this, like, what's going on for us and how did we get here and what are the ways that we've manifested it. And a lot of that stuff comes from childhood,
Yes,
and
absolutely. Just
and
Yep.
Therapy is of course good, but again, looking at those manifestations is the thing that's going to start to rewire how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't mean lying. I want to be clear. I don't want to conflate it with the idea that, it's not true, it's not real, but a lot of the things we tell ourselves is not true. It's what are you putting into the world to manifest? What are you moving forward
Absolutely.
and
And
towards?
even if you have to start smaller, maybe you can't say I'm a millionaire, but maybe you can say something else that feels possible but out of reach until you build your muscle up. Because if it's so shocking to you that you just reject it completely, that's not going to work either. It has to be somewhere in the middle of not what you currently have, but not so big that you can't even imagine it, but a push. You know that if you pushed a little bit, you could probably get there. Okay, so our final question before we wrap up is, when you are having a bad day, as we all do sometimes, and you're in a mental funk, what is one tip, one, to get yourself out of it?
To get myself out of it. Singing. I
Oh,
I like to sing. So
yes.
singing, if I'm in a funk, you know what? Sometimes I'm in a funk and I just need to peace out and just I watch television. I will admit that television is my radio, even though I love music. Television impacts a different part of your brain, so it kind of pulls you out of reality. So sometimes I might just watch some
Yeah,
silly show, or I might sing a song and just put myself into a different space.
I love that.
I spend a lot of time in that joy space, but definitely sometimes funk happens and I'll ride it
Allow
out.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
allow it,
I don't
right?
fight it. I'm just like, "Ooh,
No.
that's today. I guess that's today." So I'll give myself when I was really young, and I wrote about this in the chapter I wrote for a book called Boss Latinas, the anthology that I'm a part of. And I talked about when I was a teenager, there was a lot of bad things happening. We had moved suddenly. There's a lot of things that as a young person I was really struggling with, and I was upset all the time. And what I did is I carved out, I don't even know how I thought of this, but I carved out 5 to 10 minutes a day where I would just be sad. And I
Yeah.
would allow myself to have 100% of the sadness, and then I would go about my day.
I love that because that's actually one of the best. In fact, I always state that I think that's the best tip my mother ever gave me. She gives me a lot of great tips, but one thing she said to me is, when you're in a bad mood, get 10 minutes to cry and then snap out of it. And I love that because it allows you to acknowledge your pain, experience it, but not dwell in it and get stuck like it's a quicksand, because you have things to do. There's bigger pictures and lots to be grateful for. So, okay, Joe, one more time, tell them, we see it on the screen, but for those listening on the podcast, can you let everybody know what your website is, spell it out, and they can go find you if they are listening to the audio right now?
I will. I just want one note of there are people out there with depression, and I want to acknowledge that we know that not everything is time out and come back into
Yes,
it. So
absolutely.
please look for expert help, find people who love you where you are, and understand that even if that is something that's going on for you, you can still be successful. It's just going to be in your way.
Yeah.
So follow what you need to do in the best ways to keep up with your mental health and to
Yes,
be able to
that's
be
absolutely. I'm glad that
absolutely.
you mentioned that, because
Of
we're
course.
speaking in a very, superficial question there about when you're having a bad
Absolutely.
day. But this was, of course, if you're really needing help, please reach out. Absolutely. And
100%.
it'll
So
it'll
my name is so just to come back to the question and to wrap this up, my name is Joe Welch. I'm known as the beneficiary's best friend. If you want to find me, come to JOWELCH.com. That's Joe. And just by the way, it's my sign name in sign language, JO Welch, WELCH.com. There you're going to find out about all my events, everything that I'm doing from fun to play to programs and so much more, because I have a very robust life and I love bringing people along with me. So I hope that you carve out some time and come and have some fun with me.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much, Joe. I knew this was going to be a beautiful interview, really beautiful, because we really went a little bit deeper into less questions, but really these are very important things that we discussed, because I know that almost every single business woman experiences it, all the things we talked about. And now she knows she's not alone. She's not nuts. It's not crazy, that we all have gone through it, and there's a way to do things, and just keep going for your dreams. So anyway, thank you so much, Joe, and
It's
to
been
all of
such a
you well.
pleasure.
I love it. To all you wealthy women out there, now remember, there's many parts to wealth, and you want to make sure that you get all of your ducks in a row, all the things. So reach out to Joe for what we spoke about today, or all the other things, or just to have some karaoke fun if that's what you desire, just to connect.
Woohoo!
So thank you so much. Until next Wednesday, I will bring you another success interview. Remember to stay inspired and go for your dreams. You will get there, and enjoy the process, and give yourself a pat on the back for all that you have done properly and that you will continue to do. And see you next time. And thanks for joining. Bye for now.